Welcome to another episode of Tell Me More. Today, Dr. Wiles, Brian Sepulveda, and myself have a great conversation about how life is just harder than you expected, but we also talk about all of the wonderful things happening in the life of our traditionals ministry and at our church throughout the month of August. We hope this is a really helpful episode for you, and there's some great helpful advice about navigating mental health from a spiritual perspective. All right, well, welcome to Tell Me More. We don't have Katie today.
No.
She's down in Waco doing some planning for something called the Junia Project, which is an ascent work, but it's high-capacity women leaders who gather together for encouragement, support. So she is helping lead that effort for the Ascent movement, and so she's down at Truth Seminary for a planning day for the Junia Network, and we are proud of her and thankful that she's engaged in that work.
Absolutely.
But we have Brian.
There you go. I'm
what
back.
you just heard.
Yeah.
Back by popular demand.
Oh, boy. I don't know.
That's what I've heard. That's exactly right. Man, did you hear Brian? I said, yeah, I know Brian. I've known Brian almost 25 years. Of course I heard him.
Yeah.
I've only known him for 3.
Okay.
So
Well, it's good to be back.
We're glad
and
to
with,
have you
with
back.
the real people. Last time it was the B team,
I don't know about that.
Oh, no, but we had fun. It was good. It's good to be back. So,
Yeah. Well, before we dive into the sermon, you serve our traditionals at our church because we have people who may not be familiar with your work who listen. Hopefully, a lot of people are.
Right.
But what's happening in traditionals ministry at First Baptist Arlington?
Well, man, we are just really excited about all the things that are going on. We just 2 weeks ago, we partnered with the Young Families Ministry, where young families went and visited several of our shut-ins, about 20 some odd folks. And it was just a real blessing. We got some pictures back. I've already heard back from some of the folks that were visited and just how encouraging that was and just how neat it was to see their little kids running around and to be a part of that. And so these folks have not been a part of, been able to be in church for a good while. And we've got
You took the church to them.
Exactly. So, but then we're also got things for folks that are able to come to church as well. And we're got coming up our next Magnificent Monday, which will be a prayer walk, a virtual prayer walk.
I'm excited.
That you're coming, and you and Ashley are coming to help with that.
It's going to be fun.
And it's going to be really good as we pray for our immediate community as well as around the world. And so I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's going to be a great time.
And that's going to lead into our next seminar in September for our church app seminar. And we're going to help our folks just learn how to navigate that well. And
Can I come to that?
you can come. Yeah, we'd love for you to.
Okay.
You can be our resident expert. Okay. Yeah, we're really looking forward to that. And a part of that is going to be to introduce to them the Bless app that you're going to be talking about.
And so I'll be there.
I've enjoyed that. I've downloaded that recently and just praying through my neighborhood.
I appreciate the shameless plug.
And it's going to be neat for our folks to be able to participate in that. And then later in September, our pastor is going to kick off a flourishing series that we're going to be doing over the next year that speaks specifically to how our oldest generation can flourish, and it's based on Psalm 92, starting in verse 12, where it talks about, that the righteous will flourish like the palm and like the cedar of Lebanon, and that they will continue to flourish even in their old age.
Look at Brian.
I'm really excited about that, and you're going to kick us off with that series at the end of September, and just talking about close social relationships, and that's actually going to be what you'll be preaching on at the time. So we're looking forward to that, and just really being targeted and specific to our traditional folks. So,
I love that.
Yeah. Lots of good stuff.
Do such tremendous ministry.
I'm just telling you, Brian.
It's amazing to watch.
Thank you.
Brian does such a good job. He's always done a good job.
Well, I love these folks. They are just precious.
They're sweet people.
They're they're incredible saints, and I'm grateful to be a part of a church that has that population, and so we want to make sure.
They love you.
Well,
they do.
Yeah. It's good.
What's not to love about Brian Sepulveda, though, right?
I can't think of anything.
I'm saying, and
thanks.
I'm so glad you're doing that, Brian, because, I think when just thinking about flourishing, some people I think have this misunderstanding that to flourish means that everything is just perfect in your life. And so I remember when we first started talking about this, one of the folks from the traditionals ministry came up to me and said something like, I'm 85 years old. Some mornings I can't even hardly get out of bed. I can't go and do what I used to do. Yep. And now you want to talk about flourishing. The last thing on my mind is flourishing. And I just said, well, let's rethink flourishing.
Exactly.
Let's think about where you are in your life right now, because flourishing looks different in every season of life. And the more we talked, she was like, well, I hadn't thought about it that way. And I said, well, you think about the time you have right now to pray and to connect with people. And she said, well, I've been doing that. And started telling me about all these people she's praying for. And I said, think about how valuable is that you, someone who's walked with God for so long and knows God so well, and you're coming before the Lord. I said, there are like nuns that live in convents that's all they've done their whole adult life.
Yeah, they thought it was worth giving up everything.
Yeah, their whole life of it. And I said, look at you, what you're doing right now, how important it is. And she talked a little bit about, well, I also write notes to people. And I said, you're describing what it means.
That's a vibrant ministry.
Exactly.
So she felt so much better after that talk. But I think, again, it was just a misunderstanding. Like, well, man, I know what it's like. I used to flourish. Well,
you can still flourish where you're at.
Yeah,
exactly.
So
exactly.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, this podcast is sponsored by First Baptist Arlington.
Absolutely.
So on top of all of the wonderful things happening in the traditionals ministry, August is a full month at our church.
Busy.
It is busy. So next Sunday, school will have started. Most schools, I think Arlington and Mansfield both start Wednesday. We have some Arlington Classics people. They started last week. God bless them.
Got a head start, didn't they?
But we're going to see, I think we'll start seeing our surge of college students visiting our church for the very first time this coming Sunday. Our Korean students come back, which is always exciting. I think we're getting a record number of new students for our Koreans is what I've heard. So the largest incoming group we've ever had.
Wonderful.
Which is so great. We love having them. But Dollar Steak Night is coming, which is an event our college ministry hosts where UTA students can come, or other students can come and buy steak for $1. So many people from our church.
It's actually really good too.
It's good. It's a great meal.
It's very good. Very good.
It is definitely worth more than $1.
Yes.
But our college minister, Connor, has talked about that the students they've encountered that event, some of the baptisms we saw last year were a direct result of students coming to Dollar Steak Night. So it's a huge, meaningful, and important event in the life of our church. So you may have seen sign-up sheets for desserts or volunteering.
That's what I was about to say.
And so if you were on the fence about whether or not you should serve or bring a dessert,
great thing to support.
Do it because the Lord works through Dollar Steak Night.
That's right.
And it's funny because those kids, I think I've been to every one of them through the years, and it's just interesting how some of them will come up and go, I never carry money in my wallet, but when I heard about this, I've got my $1 or I've got $5. It's just I see a college kid with real cash money in their hands, like they've never touched it before. And,
what is this?
But what I have been able to tell them is, well, because sometimes somebody will say, well, how do y'all do that? How can we buy this meal for $1? And I said, well, there are faithful church members that give their money to support this kind of ministry so that you can come and have this really sweet night. And it's kind of a novelty,
Which is another way to support it. If you can't volunteer, if you can't bake a dessert, you can give money to help the cost of this event.
I gave you an envelope yesterday of sign-ups and money and everything from one of our older departments just to help support it. So it's great to do that.
It's 165, not 165.
They had over, I want to say somewhere between 130 and 150.
145 maybe.
Something like that last year.
Kids.
Awesome. Which I'm sure there'll be even more this year.
It is something else to see all those, and they are from literally all over the world.
And so you can also get, I think, a grilled mushroom. Because we have
a lot of people that are not.
A lot of our South Asian students are vegetarian or don't eat beef. So we actually have thought about that.
That's
our college
awesome.
ministry has thought about that. So it's not just beef, because we have a lot of students around us who don't eat beef.
It's interesting. So in Arlington, Texas.
So
this is awesome.
A lot of exciting things happening. Midweek starts after Labor Day, so that's coming. We'll talk more about that in the coming weeks. But there's a lot happening in the life of this church in August.
What a great church to be a part of.
I know. And Fresh Start was yesterday with all
Yeah.
the new classes. Cindy brought three of our three youngest grandchildren to church yesterday, all starting new classes. And so it was interesting. Ada is in the 6th grade, which is
Right.
great. She's been ready. She's already had events all summer and all that. But the two little ones, you know, they're in a routine of their little department and their teachers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we were wondering, how's that going to go?
Yeah.
And, but they both did really well.
And Adler did well in the service.
She
Big enough for
came
big
first
church.
time,
Big church.
Big enough for big church.
That's
She had her
awesome.
little, Casey made sure she had her little bag and sat on the front row with Cindy and, you know, colored and marched. She told me after church we were having a birthday party for Adrian, our daughter-in-law. And so Cindy brought the kids back to the house, and then we were heading over to the birthday party. Well, when I came in, Adler was sitting at the table eating a snack, and I knew we were about to go to this birthday party to have lunch with our family, you know, with Adrian's parents and Josiah and all them. And I said, "Well, Adler, honey, are you eating right now? Aren't you going to eat lunch when we do?" And she said, "Poppy, I'm hungry." She said, "I didn't have any snacks the whole time you were talking." You know? And I kind of looked at her, and she said, and I realized
She used to get goldfish.
She-
and
that's
carrots.
exactly.
When she's in the nursery, you know,
Yeah.
in worship care.
Yeah,
rather.
yeah.
And she was like, "The whole time you were talking, I didn't get anything to eat."
She's starving. She's ready. That's great.
Anyway, so we'll see. I told Cindy we have to rethink that little church bag. We have to have a snack in there for her. And
Exactly.
think about it, that's a
Essential.
long time for
It
them to go.
is. It is.
Snacks
You
are
know?
essential for that year.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes. But so far, so good. We're one Sunday in, and we did okay. So, yeah. But there were a bunch of them in there yesterday. You know, golly,
we had a lot of people here.
yes, and a lot of
we did.
kids and a lot of little ones. And they're just so cute.
I think by my current reckoning, somewhere around 26 first-time guests. I haven't had a chance to sit down and comb through it yet today, but that's my afternoon is following up with all those wonderful people who came to our church for the first time.
good.
And we haven't even hit the new college students coming yet.
Yeah.
So be on the lookout for new people in the month of August. It is our peak month every year for new people to visit our church for the very first time.
This makes
So,
sense.
If you see people looking around aimlessly, looking lost and confused, you can actually help them.
Yeah.
That happened
And
to me
talk to them.
yesterday.
Yeah.
I was walking through the preschool children's building. It was right at that time where our team who welcomed the guests had just left for whatever. And so this family walked in. There were 4 of them. And when I saw them walk in, they just had that look. It's like they walked in the door, and the first thing they did was they all looked up.
started
And I just
looking
happened
around.
to see them. And I walked over to them. I said, "How are you folks doing?" They said, "We're doing great." And I said, "Do you know where you're going?" And the dad said, "Actually, we have absolutely no idea." And then the daughter, teenage daughter, she said, "Well, we're following these signs." And I said, "Why don't you just let me walk with you?"
Yeah.
And,
Great.
So there is a look,
yeah.
and it looks lost
It does.
and confused.
So
Walk with people and be
yeah,
kind.
that's
There
right.
you go.
It's real sweet. But anyway, so yeah, and
But
we're back in the saddle.
You preached a sermon yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, I did yesterday, and so we're week 2 into our series on mental health, and it's interesting.
Life is hard.
Life is hard. At one point, speaking of children in church, you preached on Job, Job 5:7, and so my oldest daughter is sitting with us in worship, who is going into 3rd grade, but still sometimes it's not quite caught the rhythm of not responding to what you're saying aloud. It hasn't got that, yet. Always, and you're preaching on Job and talking about all the things that have happened in his life, and she, not quietly, goes, "Man, he was unlucky." So,
boy.
what a joy for the people around us to hear that. But yeah,
commentary.
life is hard.
That's right. Harder than you expected.
Harder than you expected.
And but yeah, well, so Brian, it's interesting. I went to, as you know, Luke and I, we went to Australia. We've talked a little bit about that. We did different things at the Baptist World Alliance. We
Right,
kind of
right.
ran in different circles for a million reasons. And
Turns out it's hard to find each other in a room of 3,500 people.
Yeah. Imagine that.
so, but while Brian attended virtually.
Virtually.
Yes.
Yeah.
From here.
It was pretty cool.
He was a part of the Baptist World Alliance from Arlington while we were in Australia. Well, so unbeknownst to Brian, just that array of seminars, that was offered every day. If you remember, Luke, is like every hour or so you could go to they were all so incredible. Cindy and I went to different ones. She just said, well, I'm going to this, I'm going to that. And I was like, well, I'm not even interested in that.
Right.
I want to go to this. And she said, well, I'm not going to that. And so we kind of just divided, and she was able to encounter a lot of, folks that are in the mission world that she wanted to know more about and what's happening with them. And so I went to different things. They had something new this time that they've never had before. They had this preaching symposium where they had this group of preachers. Ralph and I used to teach at Truett Seminary together. He's a pastor in Houston, and we taught preaching together. And so he hosted this preaching symposium of these preachers from all over. And it was
literally,
literally, and it was a time to just listen and not really, I wouldn't say critique, that's probably not the right word, but to tease out of the preacher. So why did you address it this way? Or, so I was pretty interested in it. And one of my best friends was preaching at it. And then I knew I was getting ready for this series on mental health and been struggling with it.
Right.
And when I saw that Kay Warren was teaching one, I thought, well, I might go to that. And so anyway, so that morning of that day, Rick Warren was doing this Bible study. And I talked to a couple of buddies of mine, and we said, well, let's just go hear Rick. We were having lunch with Rick that day.
Right.
Let's just go hear Rick teach the Bible study. Well, while we're in there and he's teaching this Bible study on the book of Acts, he starts telling the story of his son that took his own life.
Yeah.
Very vulnerable, and it was just very powerful. And that kind of pushed me over the edge. I said, oh, all right, I'm definitely going to go hear Kay today, his wife. Because
she's wonderful.
She
my goodness.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so I go to that seminar, and I kind of told that story yesterday about what happened. Well, anyway, I get an email from Brian while I'm in Australia. And I guess.
Yeah, you were still touring.
Yeah, I was touring, yeah. And it's very sweet, typical Brian Spalding. Hey, man, I don't want to be presumptuous or something like that, but you may not have seen this, and it's okay, whatever. But, man, I virtually attended this seminar by Kay Warren on mental health, and he starts describing everything and how powerful it was and how it spoke to him. And man, you might want to look at this, because I know you're getting ready to teach on this. Anyway, I asked Katie if it was okay to send this to you. It was very polite. And I was reading that. I was on a bus going somewhere. I was reading. I told Cindy, I said, Brian has no idea that was such a powerful experience.
I would love to hear your take on it, though.
Wow, it was just incredibly meaningful, and just how vulnerable she was, really, and just talking
she
about.
She spoke at the Next Gen Summit that I was a part of.
Did she?
So I think some similar things, but yeah,
and just the way they walked that journey with him, with their son Matthew,
incredible,
and then just how they have walked that journey of grief afterwards. And I was telling Dr. Wiles before we started recording, I did a service this past weekend, a funeral service for a young 27-year-old who had passed away, and a lot of the truths that I heard from Kay in that seminar, I used in my sermon with the group. And then even just knowing how to help them minister to the family afterwards was things that I pulled from that seminar. So it was just I think it was a God thing that you were able to be a part of that, and I'm grateful that opportunity presented itself, and I'm looking forward to hearing the future weeks too. Yeah.
And I don't want to steal thunder from future sermons, but both of you who attended that session virtually and in person, what are some of the truths, for listeners, viewers at home who didn't get to see that? What are some of those truths that have stuck with either one of you that you're kind of carrying and thinking through? How you walk alongside grieving people or people going through mental health issues.
I think one of the things that stuck out to me was just being mindful about the importance of being present. You mentioned it yesterday in your sermon. Job's friends came and they just sat with him for 7 days in silence. And really that ministers to people in such an incredible way. We don't need to try to answer questions. We don't need to try to offer, because we don't have the answers. We don't know. We're not God. We don't understand that. And so to try to say something, we're probably going to say something that is going to be too plithy or hurtful even. And so it's just better just to be silent, to be present, and then to act, to not act, to not say, let me know if there's anything you need. Just go ahead and do it. Go ahead and take that meal. Go ahead and help them straighten up their house. Go ahead and help them with their lawn. Just act. Don't give them something else that they have to do. And then I think the other thing that I kind of glean from all of that is just how that the scars of grief are is like a cut that you get on your hand. Immediately it's something you have to deal with. It's right there, and you have to tend to it. But after time, a scab builds up over it, and you might bump into it, and it rebleeds, and so you have to tend to it again. But eventually, it's going to scar. It's going to heal somewhat, and there's still evidence of that, and it's scar. And she related to that about being the scars of Jesus, and how there's beauty in that, and there can be beauty in the scars that you go through, and just finding that, and to not be to not have your joy stolen from you. And so I think those are the things that as far as helping people grieve through that process, just as a person that walks along someone in that journey, I think those were great words of encouragement from somebody that has really been through the deep, dark turmoil and distress, and just being crushed in spirit, So, anyway,
yeah, it was helpful. In fact, I have my notes here from that seminar. Actually, she gave us a little handout, and just to me, what you said, Brian, some practical stuff like, she kind of gave us a list of things not to do, like to say things like, well, I know exactly how you feel. And she said, every time I heard that, I thought, no, you don't. You don't know how I feel. And so she herself said she's learned to say, well, I have no idea how you must be feeling. I know how I felt when we lost our son, but I can't imagine how you might be feeling right now. Just to honor the other person's experience, and when she said, people would say to her, well, what can we do for y'all? When can we bring you a meal? And she said, I'm thinking, I can't even make a decision right now about, anything. And now you wanting me to somehow enter into your dilemma. And she said, I would just tell people, I don't know. She said, so the people that were most helpful were the ones who just would drop by, drop a meal off, even if they didn't eat it. Just the fact that she didn't have to figure out when to do it.
Don't give someone another problem to solve.
Exactly. Yeah. So I thought that was really good. But I think, too, another thing that was encouraging to me is she talked about how remarkably watching some people just be resilient and joyful in spite of the circumstances. And kind of the question is, well, how do you do that? And I got to thinking about people in our world. I'm in my prayer time Sunday, I mentioned we have a family in our church. Their little girl's gotten this kidney transplant, down in Houston. And she's a fighter, man. She just is, and she just has joy, and she's been through such a hard time in her little life. Just dialysis and pretty much all the things that a teenage girl does not want to have to deal with. That's her life. And now all of a sudden that life is potentially changing, and watching her parents just be sacrificial, and her grandparents, and yet they just are joyful people. When they don't. When you're with them, it's not like it's a doom and gloom outlook. Right. There's a lot of hope in who they are. And that was encouraging to me to think about, how do you get to that point? How do you help people find their way to that, so that you don't drown in your suffering? Yeah. You don't you don't sink down into your shame, so to speak, if it's a shameful thing. Because sometimes things happen to us by our own choice. Yeah. We make poor choices, and consequences come. And I think the encouragement towards buoyancy and hopefulness, and also being reminded that God really cares about you. That's what I'm going to talk about next Sunday, because I know that it's tempting to think, well, obviously God just doesn't care, because this just couldn't happen. Yeah. And so I was thinking too about while we were in Australia, that right as we were leaving, this whole flood thing happens in Central Texas, and it's like it's so devastating. It's like I couldn't even get my mind wrapped around it. How did this happen, and what are all these people doing? And so while we were gone, I was reading things like, where these churches were having like multiple funerals. And I'm thinking, wow, can you imagine, being just caught up in all of that and then the wake of it all. And then hearing some of the testimonies of people who have found their way through it and trying to minister to others in spite of their loss. And I don't know, it was just there were just a lot of examples that just kept coming to my mind, even while she was talking, of my own experience and things that I knew were happening here. And so it was just an encouraging thing. Now, I will say Rick's Bible study was incredible. I'm just telling you, Rick's, he's...
we would expect nothing less.
He's an incredible man of God. And being with him, I think I've said to several people, you can just feel the anointing of the Spirit of God on Rick Warren. You just can. I'm sitting right next to him at lunch, and he's just, I've never really been around anybody quite like him that I know of. And just an aura around him, humble, godly, and then being with her right after that, similarly. So yeah, it was a God appointment for me and for you, and it's paying dividends now in our church's life and in my own life. And because the journey, as I said yesterday, life can just be incredibly difficult, and it sounds like you're kind of a pessimist when you say that, but it's just the reality. And it's so much harder than you expected it to be. You just didn't know some of the things you signed on for, and now all of a sudden here's your reality, and you look at it sometimes and you think, my goodness, how did we get to this?
Right.
What's the way through it? Because sometimes there's not a way out of it.
Right. Exactly.
It's the way through.
You're going to have scars.
Yeah. And some things, like I was saying yesterday, when Kay was going through her list, and she got down to unchangeable circumstances.
Control the controllables and leave the rest up to God.
Man, that just hit me so hard. I sat there and I thought about that. Man, that's probably the hardest thing for me, when it's just, you just can't change it.
Yeah.
It's not going to change. Not because God can't do a miracle. It's just because it's just not going to change. And coming to grips with that sometimes for me, that's really hard for me. And I know it is for a lot of other people. Just like this lady that I was talking to at our church, 85 years old. Well, she's not going to wake up tomorrow morning and be 45. And I'm not saying aging is terrible, but I'm just saying her sense of she can't do this anymore. And that's just not going to change. It's not because God couldn't change it. Right. But she's not going to go out and run through the zoo with her grandchildren the way she did with her children. That's just not going. She would have to do it now with her great grandchildren. It's just not going to happen. And so coming to grips with things that just change, and then you just have got to let them. They just got to sit with you. And there's so many things in life that are that way. And so I think about when Job's buddy said, just like the sparks fly upward, trouble's coming. I thought, man, what a take on life. But actually, he's right. So anyway, I'm hopeful that as we go through this series, that we'll acknowledge and embrace the reality of life, but also acknowledge the fact that we don't have to be done in by it.
Right.
Yeah.
That we can navigate through it.
Yeah. And there are resources availve to help us do that.
Resources available. And I think about your ministry, Brian. You think about you're ministering to so many of these seasoned veterans who've been through a lot. They know life was harder than they thought it was going to be. And so there's a lot of wisdom, I think, in your ministry area. And I think even the ability for some of them to minister to others because
of what they've journeyed through,
the resiliency, that they've had.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that you said yesterday that I appreciated and really resounded on is really there are things out of our control like that, but then also just our biology, our chemistry in ourselves sometimes leads us in a path that we are not able to be healthy mentally because of that. And it's a real thing. And I appreciate how direct you were. I think you were a little more direct in the second service than you were in the first.
I was.
But I
don't know why, but I just was.
No, yeah. But you were just like, we need to stop doing that if we're one of the ones that are making mental health, making counseling a bad thing.
Yeah.
Got
to destigmatize it.
Anxiety and depression and other mental disorders are the result of
and sometimes
faulty brain chemistry.
The only thing that can help, one of the biggest things that can help with that is by being on prescription medication.
Right. Exactly.
And it's okay. And it's all right. And one of the things that Rick said in that, when he came up to us, is that when he was talking to his son, it's like, your chemistry did not make your character.
That's right.
And wow, that really hit home with me.
Because their son was sad from day one. Just had issues that were chemically driven. And you're right, Brian. I think there's abuse everywhere. You can go to seed on anything if you want to. But if you're genuinely seeking health, and it does require the intervention of medicine, that to me is a part of God's resourcing.
Right.
I mean, a psychiatrist is a medical doctor.
Right. Exactly.
As well as a counselor.
Yes.
But they are. That's their life. That's what they do. When I was in college,
and you're not a bad Christian or a bad Jesus follower because you need that.
Exactly.
Or a weak one.
Right.
Yes.
You're just not. When I was in college, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I thought I was going to be a doctor, and so I was studying for all of that pre-med. And I got into the psychology field, but I was really drawn to like neuropsychology, psychopharmacology. Those were my favorite classes. And it was just a brand new thing to me to see the research on how these scientists had figured out ways to alter some brain chemistry because they figured out if you can do that, it levels out people's lives and emotions and ability to reason. And it was just a fascinating new thing to me. And man, I got really infatuated by it. In fact, one of the psychopharmacology books I had in college, I still have in my office because I took so many notes in it. I was like, man, this really does make a difference in people's lives.
Yeah. And you would never tell me to just try praying harder to get rid of my seasonal allergies.
Exactly.
No, there's no shame in me taking allergy medication every day because without it, I'd sneeze or lose my, lose my voice.
Exactly.
You're not going to tell me to just pray that away.
Right.
And we're not going to do that to you if you need medication for a mental disease.
Just pray alongside it.
And do other things like getting counseling, going to see counselors. I think is another one of those things that we sometimes don't look highly on, and we need to change that.
And since our church sponsors this podcast, we have this. It's not really new now. It's newer arrangement with the Center for Integrative Counseling and Psychology right here on our campus. And I can't remember how many counselors
They're
we
trained,
have.
they're
Now.
licensed.
I think there's 9 or 10.
I don't remember how many are here, but then we're connected to like 35 or 40 other counselors who are still who are part of that same company. So if you work in Dallas and you think, man, I can't get all the way back to the church, well, you don't have to.
Right.
As a member of our church, you have access to the counselors that are in Dallas or that are in Waco or wherever. They're scattered all over the Metroplex. And we're happy to help connect people to them because we trust them. They're Christians. They're licensed professional counselors. And they follow Jesus. And they're followers of Jesus. And so I've referred so many folks to our counseling center. But if you can't get here, you can find one of those, and they even do virtual care.
They do.
We it's a resource, And then there are other traumas that we go through in life. And so the ministry that we have called Divorce Care or Grief Share, well, they are aimed at letting you come alongside someone and walk through that crisis moment in their life with a hope toward healing. And again, there's no shame in it. It's just it's coming into a community. That's what the church is all about to me, is to be an instrument of healing and to bless the instruments of healing that God's made available that might be outside the church. Like a psychiatrist who may not, it's not like we're prescribing medication, that's not what we do, but we're connected to people who can, and and then just learning to live in community with each other and walk alongside one another and help absorb some of the shock of life, is a beautiful thing that the church can do. And that's what I love about being in a multi-generational church, because you've got people who've been following Jesus for a long time, who've got some of those scars, and God can actually work through them to help others that when they're going through somewhat similar circumstances, to let them know you can make it, you can do this. And so, there's to me, there's the fact that God's provided these resources is beautiful, and there's a spiritual component to it. We actually believe the Bible, and
absolutely, absolutely,
we do believe the Bible. And so when Jesus issues an invitation to come to Him, well, we believe that.
Right.
We go to Him in prayer and in worship, and hand Him these things and ask Him to help us, and come alongside each other and pray for one another and look for those spiritual resources that bring healing into people's lives. Sometimes it's forgiveness. Sometimes it's overcoming shameful behavior. Sometimes it's just healing, and coming to grips with reality, or being in a small group, to where you have other believers who can support you in it and study the Bible with you together and release some of the things in prayer and worship that you carry all the time, where you don't, you can get so burdened down by it and totally lose your perspective. Well, the church is there for all that. So, I'm hopeful that what this series is going to do for us is just minister to people, instruct, I think, but also just minister to their very real needs, because these needs are very real in people's lives.
Absolutely.
And I've heard from so many people just in the last 2 weeks of things that are going on in their life that I didn't even know about, and just letting me in on, well, this is something we're dealing with. And, today you just reminded us, we've got to continue walking down this path. So, it's pretty encouraging, really. And then you read the story of Job. I mean, dude. So, and
what
then
an unlucky guy.
Exactly. According to Evelyn. And then Elijah.
Sorry.
I mean, I've always been fascinated with that story of Elijah, how he went from just the highest high, man. I mean, just on Mount Carmel, all of a sudden running for his life from Jezebel. Next thing you know, he's in a cave by himself, and you're like, come on, dude. But I didn't, I didn't walk that path.
It's easy for us to forget. I think sometimes we may feel, hopefully you don't feel like you have to, but you may feel that there's this pressure to come to church and present yourself as this shiny, happy person. But I think if you were to go read all of the Bible, you're going to see it's not full of shiny, happy people. They are broken. They're depressed. They're scared. They're anxious.
Read the Psalms.
I mean, Jeremiah is called the weeping prophet. And so it's not a book of shiny, happy people.
Has a whole book called Lamentations. And so
your whole human experience belongs here.
And I think to me, that's part of the beauty of the Bible. It's one that, to me, it's a part of the authenticity of the Bible, that it just presents these people in their real lives.
Right.
I mean, I'm thinking, had I been the editor, and
I
Elijah
would try to make him look better.
I'm just telling you, the last thing I would do is have Elijah crying out to die. I'd say, okay, I get it, but we're not putting that in there.
Right.
Because this guy, he is the prophet of prophets, and yet here he is thinking that he's all by himself. And then he makes all these mistakes. He gets his servants and dismisses them and just keeps going by himself. And then he starts thinking about everybody else. Well, I'm no better than my ancestors. Comparing myself and those are just mistakes that you make emotionally and mentally. And we live in a culture right now that just exacerbates that. I feel like I don't even know what we should call social media. I don't know if that's the right name for it. Because it doesn't feel
it's not very social.
It's not social. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like...
And we've talked a lot about it on here before, but it can really... It's a good tool.
It can be,
Let's acknowledge it's a tool.
Absolutely.
It has a place, but it can also do untold damage, especially to your mental and social health.
And
especially
when you're reading,
if you're still a developing human.
That's what I was about to say. You read all this research on these teenagers who are taking their own lives because they get bullied because of something they've done on social media by people they don't even know.
Right.
Which is a good... We'll harken back to when Justin Whitmell early was here and he talked about the Hangington Movement. Check that out. You can Google that, but it's about just setting some parameters around access to technology and the internet with people who are still developing their brains.
And
steward that well.
And just the way that people, I think, look at it and you just end up in these comparative thoughts about the lives that other people are living. And it's just not healthy, comparing yourself all the time with others. It's just not the path toward healing, and isolating yourself is just not the path toward health. It's just not. And we're going to talk about that in the fall about having good, healthy relationships. And so that's why I think this particular journey into flourishing is coming at a great time for our church. And then we were just with Katie and Kurt and I went down to San Antonio last week, and we were with the research team from Harvard and from Baylor, and the churches. I think there's 7 churches, I believe that's right, that are in the Texas corridor, if you will, who are going to pilot this little project, if you will, from, I say little project. Yeah. It's a part of the global flourishing study, but it's its own thing. It's aimed right at churches and
Christians. You only call things little when you really like them.
Yeah. So I really, really like it. And so, you have this, we've done this 12 question measure, flourishing measure. Well, I think what we're about to get, we're getting the preview of it this week, but they walked us through it last week. It's like 72 questions, and it's about things like hope and forgiveness and your own personal devotional life. And when we do this survey, it's anonymous, so it's not like anyone's going to know this is you. Right. But what you will be able to do is to collectively as a church see where our pain points are as a church. What are some things that our church seems to be doing well? What are some areas that we need to address as a church so that we can together find our path toward healing? And so what I'm excited about is it's real research that they believe can actually have an impact on public policy, and that if we feel good about it and we believe it's really given accurate results and we're very thoughtful about it, it's the kind of thing they're going to make available to lots of churches. They don't want to do that yet because, they're just trying to figure out, is this really even the right way to do this?
Yeah.
And Kate Long, who's helping to lead it, is so genuine and godly and thoughtful and just loves the church. I wish the whole church could have been there to hear her presentation.
That was incredible.
And then,
wow.
So she is just awesome. So she led us on Wednesday in San Antonio, and it was the same. I was sitting there listening to her thinking, and this is why our church loved you so much. This genuine, for some of the churches that were there, it was their very first time to meet her, very first time to hear anything she had to say. And, pastors and leaders were there. And you could just see in the room the same thing I saw in our room at our church. Just everybody was just drawn to Kate, and she was so authentic, and I'm really excited about it. And to me, it connects with this whole journey into mental health, healthy relationships. It's just coming a good time for us. So I'm pretty excited about it. So
it's exciting.
There
are exciting things ahead.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, to be continued, right?
To be continued next week.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the Tell Me More podcast today. You can subscribe to this podcast on your app of choice, or you can visit us at fbca.org to find out more information about the podcast and our church. Thanks for listening. Have a good day.